back to Gamers Web. Today we're going to take a look at the Science Division supplement real book for the excellent Star Trek Adventures role-playing game from Modiphius Entertainment. This is one of the two books available at the moment that allows you to play characters from various divisions within Starfleet. So this is the front cover. Here we have a Katian and a human, and looks like another human lying on the floor. Obviously about to start some strange adventure, and they are both wearing the blue of Science Division. And these next two pages are quite strange because they're very Dali-esque and also Escher-esque, with the strange steps and bizarre creatures, and I have no idea what they are there for. Okay, and here we have the credit page, which gives us the details of everyone who was involved on the project with Modiphius. Now, this is the first time that I've actually reviewed a PDF file before, so I don't know if it's going to work or not. So we have our contents, which is broken down into an introduction, Science Division. We also have Science Division characters, research and development, the Sciences Division, and Sciences personnel. And then on the next page we should get to the medical, if my PC will ever catch up. And here we have, for some reason I've misread this, but here we have a Olympic class ship, which was the USS Pasteur from the Next Generation episode All Good Things. And we now go to our introduction. Now, as I said, the Science Division is a very prominent part in the Star Trek universe. Science Div comprises of not just scientists, but also a full spectrum of people, from xenobiologists, macrobiologists, warp core engineers, warp theorists, temporal mechanic theorists, to counsellors, medics, surgeons, doctors, lots and lots of different things. So this is just giving us a quick overview of the actual way Science Division operates, and we shall just keep on going and see how we go along. Okay, so as always, it's broken down into various sections with lots of call-out boxes, which are basically shout-outs by various characters and dignitaries and non-player characters within the Star Trek universe. So we get things in here from Jean-Luc Picard, Julian Bashir, Richard Daystrom, lots of notable people. Now, Jean-Luc Picard isn't actually he is a scientist, but he isn't actually part of the Science Division, although he originally transferred from Science to Command, because he was actually part of the Science Division when he graduated from the Academy. Okay, so this gives us all our objectives and will tell us all about our departments. So we have, as I say, various departments within science that go from studying such things as temporal anomalies and alternate universes, warp core theory, to actual people who study science itself. So they are actually studying medicine and neuroscience, xenobiology, exobiology. I think archaeology comes under the Science Division as well, but I'm not really too sure. Okay, so here we have our first motto, which is Ad Astra per Aspera, which is from the stars comes knowledge, which used to be the I think it was the motto of NASA, or it could have been the US Air Force. I'll have to look that up, but Ad Astra per Aspera is from the stars comes knowledge, or aspiration. Okay, so this is giving us a history of the actual Science Division and its position within Starfleet. So this next section will take us up to the Exploratory Division, because one of the main tenets of Starfleet is exploration, as we no doubt find out with the USS Enterprise and our ongoing mission to explore strange new worlds and seek out new civilizations, and boldly go where no man or woman or being has gone before. Okay, so lots and lots of shout outs here. I'm not actually going to read through any of the text because there's far too much for me to actually analyse, and I'm only basically giving you an overview of the actual supplement itself, because it's 115 pages long, and I think I've set my screen capture to actually wrong intervals to actually capture things, and I'm trying to keep up with the PC. Okay, so here's where we have our first shout out from Jean-Luc Picard about the Prime Directive in practice, and how the Prime Directive on paper is absolutely brilliant, but in practice it is very, very difficult for Starfleet to not to turn a blind eye to certain things. So you may find a planet that is in total doom and jeopardy, but because they don't have warp core capabilities, warp capabilities, or something else that contravenes their admission into Starfleet on the UFP, the United Federation of Planets, the Prime Directive, his first tenet is that of non-interference with non-warp capable civilizations throughout the warp core. There's a really good book called The Federation that, if you're interested in this kind of thing, that explains everything from the beginnings of the tenements of the UFP right up to Deep Space Nine. This is the first bit of proper artwork. All this new artwork has been commissioned, especially by the guys at Modiphius, and there's some great stuff here. Here we see a Lieutenant Tasha Yar type fighting against a female Klingon, and then this is just telling us about making first contact with a planet and doing follow-up missions and stuff like that. So this basically just gives you a brief overview of what you shouldn't really do and what you should do if you make a first contact situation, and this is ideal background information for your games master. There's a shout out there from Dr. Richard Galen, who was Jean-Luc Picard's mentor of sorts. He's an archaeologist and a very famous guy, and when Galen died, Jean-Luc Picard kind of took up his mantle and tried to fulfill his life's ambition of finding out where life in the universe came from. And also it's rumoured that Dr. Richard Galen, although the character was killed off in Star Trek This Generation, is going to make a appearance in the Picard television show. If he doesn't make an appearance, the Picard will probably actually do something with Galen. And on a side note, that's been broken down into it's 10 episodes, and each 2 episodes of that 10 episodes is by a different director. 2 episodes by same director covering a different arc. Okay, so there's a overview of the Regular Space Station, which was first seen in Star Trek Wrath of Khan, and now we're going to Starfleet Medical. So this is just going on about how a chief medical officer can relieve a captain of their duty if they deem them to be unfit medically to actually be in command of the starship. Now, this has happened quite a few times during the run of Star Trek from 1966 right through to 2019. There's quite a few times that a captain has been relieved of duty because of medical conditions. There's a quick look at a Starfleet medical issue satchel, which contains your hypo sprays and your tricorder and scanner and lots of other diagnostic properties. So so far pretty good. I do like the fact that it's white text on black. It makes it quite easy for me to read. I do have a problem with PDFs because my vision's quite poor and I prefer print, but this was very kindly sent to me by Panny at Modiphius Entertainment, so many thanks to Panny. I will thank him later on in the video as well, but this is pretty well laid out. They're very similar to the PDF that came out for the actual core game itself. Right, so I'm just going to pause for a moment and then we'll jump right back in. And as I was saying, there's quite a lot of shout-outs in this to various dignitaries and characters throughout the Star Trek universe. Okay, so next chapter deals with science division characters. So we're looking at science school. So this is going to things like the Daystrom Institute of Higher Learning, and also studying at the academy, which is prerequisite, obviously, to being a Starfleet officer. Now, there are people in Starfleet who aren't officers, such as Miles O'Brien. He's a chief petty officer, but he isn't actually an enlisted personnel. He came from elsewhere. Here we have another piece of artwork with a Vulcan and what looks like an Edonian, but I think he's only got 2 arms, and a human. Obviously on some science mission. Now that's TOS because they were in the classic uniforms. It's really interesting to see how uniforms and things have changed over the years. There is another good book that you can pick up from, I think it's Donna Kinsley, which is the uniform history of Star Trek, which goes right up to the last Star Trek movie, Star Trek Beyond, from the first episode, from the pilot. And that's got lots and lots of great uniform details. It's brilliant if you're a cosplayer. Okay, so when this actually goes a little bit further on, we can actually get onto the next page and see what's next. So there are lots of different types of scientists, as I mentioned at the beginning of the video. All these scientists form the science branch of Starfleet, and they're identified by the blue uniforms, whether it's a light blue or a teal colour. Okay, so these are talents that are specific to your characters. So they are what you can take. So temporal mechanics. Let's have a look. I can't see. That was too far away from the computer. Okay, so rapid analysis, temporal mechanics, creating medical characters. So here we have basically our details on what to do with your various life path steps for creating your medical character, and the same for the science character as well, which is going to appear in a few moments. And it gives you as a player a really good overview of how to create your character, and also if you're a games master or narrator and you want to add a little bit more depth to your NPCs, a really good idea is to actually sit through one of these things and actually look through it. I really like these things, these LCAS screen grabs. They're fantastic. There's quite a few of them dotted throughout this book, and also through the operations manual, operations division manual. This one shows you neural cortex activity, which it's just like one of the grabs from the actual episodes of Star Trek Next Gen or DS9 or Voyager. You know, any of the modern day futuristic versions of Star Trek. So not Enterprise or the original Enterprise or the original series, or Star Trek animated series, for that matter. Okay, so hopefully we'll move on to the next part. We're on chapter 3. There are, I think it's 6 chapters in total that round out the science division, and we're taking our sweet time here. Okay, as I said, this is the first time I've ever actually tried using a PDF for a review. I've made notes from PDFs plenty of times in the past, but I've never actually tried doing a voiceover on a PDF. And I think what I'm going to do in future is just cut it down so it's a lot quicker and a little bit more streamlined. So we're just getting an overview, and I'll do that with the operations one. But seeing as this took me about 40 minutes to actually put together before I started doing a voiceover, I'm just going to leave it as it is, because I don't want to waste my time and go back again and do it all over again. Right, there we go. Right, so research and development. So we have medical equipment, artificial life forms, scientific mysteries, time and something else which I can't read, and time travel. I think it's or the Q continuum, sorry, not time and the, it's the Q continuum. The actual software I'm using, which is Power Director, I'm actually got it. I'm looking at the PDF minimalized on the screen as I'm actually reading this out to you. Okay, so unusual life forms, truly alien beings. Okay, there are quite a few in Star Trek. So off the top of my head, so you got things like Gumtu, which is an alien life form. The Vija probe, which is a sentient spacecraft that was sent out by Vija, sorry, to actually contact some whales. Let's see what else is there. The Hortra. The Hortra is a silicon-based life form, and they're quite unique because they're non-bipedal. There's an episode of Star Trek Next Generation called The Chase, which explains why most creatures you see in Star Trek are bipedal, with 2 arms and 2 legs, or more or less that, for like that kind of setup. Okay, so subspace rifts, such as the rift that goes from the delta quadrant to the gamma quadrant, or what have you, from the delta quadrant to the alpha quadrant, and then we go on to the Q continuum. Now Q is a for those who haven't seen Star Trek, is an omniscient race of beings. They're all called Q for some reason, and they have basically godlike abilities. They are very, very powerful. They can reshape and warp reality at will. They can send a spaceship millions and millions of light years in the blink of an eye, or they can transport an entire crew to the planet they choose of, or an existence that they choose of, just at a whim. And Q was a long-running adversary of Jean-Luc Picard, although it wasn't actually so much an adversary. He was actually just a thorn in Picard's side, because he was actually very, very, shall we say, pleased that he'd actually met Picard. And he was constantly testing humanity throughout the 7 series of Next Gen, and played by the excellent John Delancey, who was a brilliant foil for Patrick Stewart. Okay, so the Q Continuum will basically tell you a little bit about the Q themselves, what to do if you encounter the Q. And these guys they're omniscient, they can do anything, and it will actually eventually move on to the next page, I hope, which will give us a bit more information about them. Okay, so here we have the John Delancey Q playing billiards or pool with the universe, and Geordie LaForge looking extremely worried as he's about to pot Earth into the, I don't know, to the side pocket. I'm not very good at pool, but tells you a bit about the organisation of the Q and the reality that they live in. As they live outside of time, they don't really follow the same linear structure of time that we do, but they don't have a beginning, a middle and an end. And so this is running missions with a Q, so it tells you exactly what to expect if you're running a mission with Q. There's another shout out from Chief Medical Officer's log, which is Dr. Beverly Crusher on the USS Enterprise. Okay, so so far pretty good. I do like all the LCARs, the way the screens are set out, and there are 2 versions of the PDF. There's the regular version, which we're reviewing right now, and there's a printer friendly version which allows you to print the thing out if you want to. That one obviously is not white text on a black background, it's black text on a white background, with the rest of it's all in colour as well, obviously, but that makes it printer friendly, because if you try printing this out at home, you'd seriously run out of ink very, very quickly trying to print out all the black background, even with a laser printer. Okay, so using the science division within your games. So this is basically chapter 5, and this is for the games masters and narrators, and tells you how to do various things, such as scientific equipment, using medical equipment. Then we have details of ship's counselors. Should you use a ship's counselor in your games or not? I mean, obviously, if it depends on when your game's set. If your game is set in the original series, you may not want to use a ship's counselor because they weren't very relevant, although they were around. They weren't the most notable characters on board the ships, and we never actually got a mention of them until Star Trek Next Generation, when we were introduced to Diana Troy. Although the actual role of ship's counselor was originally hinted at in the Star Trek Phase 2, which never materialised, because that was what Ilia was meant to be. She was meant to be a counselor before she got abducted by the alien probe. But that kind of changed, and her dynamic going forward was replaced by Deanna Troi, and the Will Deckard's character was replaced by Will Riker in Next Gen. Okay, so we will eventually get on to the next slide. And as I said, this is, it's just teething. I've never tried doing this before, and if it works, it works. If it doesn't, well, God loves a trier. Just let me know in the comments what you think. And be honest, I'm quite long enough in the tooth to actually take criticism, constructive and dismissive. Alright, so where were we up to? For some reason, we seem to be stuck. I didn't leave that much of a long gap, I don't think. Well. Okay, I would say talk among yourselves, but nobody really wants to do that. So I'm just going to trim this down a moment, if you'll just bear me a few seconds. Oh, hang on, there we go, we've changed. Okay, so episodes focused on medical challenges. Okay, so in this we've got diplomacy, first contact, political, conspiracy, lots of different types of character plots. Plot devices. Episodes focus on medical character challenges. There's quite a few in Next Gen, there's quite a few in Voyager, there's quite a few in Star Trek itself. About Time, that was based on things. So there we have the Uss Grissom, which is a Oberth class, well, it's actually an Oberth class scout vessel, but the most famous one of those was the Uss Grissom, which was seen at the beginning of Star Trek 3. Use of ship's counsellors. Should I use a ship's counsellor? As I say, it's entirely down to yourself. This will give you some idea whether you should actually use the ship's counsellor or not. But it's all down to the narrator or games master, whatever you want to call yourself. If you want to use a ship's counsellor, it's another tool, and a good idea is to actually use it, if you're using a ship's counsellor, use it as an NPC, because that way if your characters are kind of drifting away from your carefully honed and scripted plot and going off on a tangent, you can actually get them back on track using a ship's counsellor. What I tend to do is my characters are all bridge crew, but no one plays the captain and no one plays the first officer, because the first officer and the captain are the ones who basically, that's where the book stops. Okay, so I'm almost at the end of the video now. So we've got some famous characters here. So major NPCs. So here we have Dr. Noonien Sung, creator of Data, and his brother Law, and the stats for him within the play. So we also have Lewis Zimmerman and Zephyrin Cochrane, the creator of the Warp Drive. These are NPC characters that are actually in the game as well. I'm not sure if the capture actually managed to grab those pages, but we'll find out as we go along. So Lewis Zimmerman is the holographic doctor engineer, the holographic engineer who came up with the idea of the emergency medical doctor, so the emergency medical program, VMH, and as played by Robert Picardo in Voyager, and we've got stats for him in the game, and it goes into a bit of background on his character. And obviously Noonien Sung created Data and Law, and is like the creator of the Sung type androids, because they're an artificial life form that has been recognized as sentient, so they now have the same life privileges that any sentient life within the Federation has. The other characters of note is like Zephyr Cochrane, who is one of the founders of the Federation, and also, as famously detailed in the Star Trek First Contact movie, was the first person to contact an alien life form, which was the Vulcans on, I think it was April 4th. Anyway, so here we go. Like there's Zephyr Cochrane, major NPC. Your characters meet him. You know that they know that they've done something well, because Zephyr Cochrane's very famous, and he's got statues built to him. Okay, so here we have the last sections of the book is lots and lots of NPCs. So you've got major and minor NPCs and notable NPCs to use within your stories, and there's plot arcs as well for all these plot devices. With optional rules and things. So, astrocartographer, counsellor, all in all, there's a lot of really, really good stuff to actually get your teeth into in this. I mean, you know, a 20-odd minute review isn't going to cut the mustard. You need to actually sit down and read through the entire book, and to get the benefit from it all, either as the PDF or actually buying the book itself from Modiphius. Okay, so we have got some notable NPCs here. So we've got a classic era character there with a tricorder, and anthropologist, historian, a grad student. Oh, look, there's a cortical stimulator, lab tech, and lots of other various things. We have a Bajoran nurse in his TNG Season 1 uniform, and we're coming up to the end of the video now, so triage nurse, emergency and medical hologram Mark II, and there's a bit about the holodeck and how it works, and a programmer as a character, and that's about it. And we're now coming up to the index. Now, as always, Modiphius give brilliant indexes to everything, dead easy to find if you're looking for something, and we also have here a quick look at other range of miniatures that are available and other things in the video.